The Justice Department says it will ask the Supreme Court to pause an appeals court decision that keeps access to a commonly used abortion pill, but imposes some restrictions that will make the medicine harder to get. While the drug Mifepristone will remain available, it can no longer be sent through the mail and is only approved for use for up to 7 weeks of pregnancy instead of the previous 10 weeks. This all comes after a federal judge sought to reverse the FDA's approval of the drug last week, leading to some backlash from both Democrat and Republican lawmakers. Joining me now is South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, a Republican. Congresswoman Mace, let me just start out by asking you what your reaction is to this new appeals court ruling.
Well, it's certainly better than keeping it off the shelves, but they limited it to 7 weeks rather than 10, which was the way that it was previously. I want to caution everybody on this particular issue. There were two rulings, opposite rulings, and this took a medication off the shelves for women who are suffering from miscarriages and want to avoid having surgery. This medication has been used in the past for cancer treatments and other diseases and illnesses like Cushing's disease. We got to be very thoughtful about how we're taking care of women in this country. And this was an unelected judge making this decision when the FDA has the ability and the right to determine what kinds of medications should be prescribed and what they're used for, not an unelected judge. I think that's important here. And as a Republican and as a suburban mom and as a woman, I want us to show some compassion to women post-Roe.
Congresswoman, there are a lot of conservatives who are celebrating today. They say this ruling is the kind of thing that they've been working towards for decades. You don't seem to be celebrating. Why is that?
I'm not, and I'm pro-life, and I have a great pro-life voting record. But there's a big difference between, I think, myself and some others who have taken this issue to the extreme. I represent a part of South Carolina. Just a few weeks ago, there were 21 state lawmakers that filed a bill. Not only did they draft it, but filed a bill that would execute women who have abortions. There's another state out there talking about their state legislature banning women from traveling outside of the state. And, these policies are insane, they're crazy, and they don't take into account, in particular, this particular pill and other ways that it might be used, especially for women who are suffering from miscarriages and want to avoid having to have surgery because of their miscarriage. And what do we say to those women? Good luck. We hope you don't get sepsis. This isn't the message that our party really should be reverberating around the country right now. Women don't get it.
And yet we're watching the Florida legislature debate today a new bill that would restrict abortions to just the first 6 weeks when many women still don't even know that they're pregnant. And the governor has said that he wants to sign that into law. Do you think that that's a mistake?
Well, particularly at 6 weeks, and with regard to the Florida legislation, and you're right, a lot of women don't know they're pregnant by then, but with regard to that particular piece of legislation, the poison pill there is that they are going to mandate women report their rapes to police in order to qualify for an abortion. That's wrong. That's a non-starter. I was raped at the age of 16. I got to tell you, if I had to report it and go through that with the police, I don't know that I would be here today. That was a traumatic experience for me. It was a horrifying experience. And to mandate that women have to report it in that kind of manner when they're not ready to do that is wrong. And then they're going to miss that window with the exceptions. And in Florida, you have to have multiple appointments with doctors before you can have an abortion. You have to have 2. You're going to be out of that 6-week window no matter what.
We spoke to your South Carolina colleague, Tim Scott, on this program yesterday, and he takes a very different view. In fact, he wouldn't commit to backing the 15-week abortion ban that is being proposed by your other state senator, Lindsey Graham. Senator Scott has now said that he'll back a 20-week ban. Where do you stand when it comes to that particular question of a federal ban on abortion?
Right. And both of our U.S. senators have supported either 15 to 20-week bans with exceptions for rape and incest in the past. I believe that some sort of gestational limit is fine. You've got Democrats on one side that want up to 24 weeks. You have Republicans on the other side. They're anywhere from 12 to 15 to 20 weeks. 15 to 20 weeks is somewhere in the middle there. I'm in a purple district, and it's unlike many Republican districts in the country. The number 2 issue here is abortion after inflation. And I talk to people all across the aisle. I talked to a woman the other day who considers herself pro-choice. She left the Republican Party over this issue. She's an independent now, and her gestational limit time frame is 14 weeks. Here I am as a pro-life Republican, and I'm saying 15 to 20 weeks should be fine for most of America. And so I think the way that we talk about it matters, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. There's about 90% in the middle where we all can find some agreement, including on gestational timeframes and limits.
You've talked about the medical concerns here, the moral concerns. What about the electoral concerns? What do you think that some of these very restrictive court decisions and bills that are being passed by state legislatures will mean for your party when it comes to re-election in 2024?
It's going to mean more losses. And I don't believe that my party has learned anything from 2022 from the midterms. We saw this issue rear its head after Roe was overturned. I was one of the few Republicans that was doing national media talking about a need to find and build consensus. I've written multiple op-eds. I've done multiple interviews on the issue. I'm in a bellwether district, and I see the pulse of everyday Americans on both sides of the aisle, men and women alike, and they are not with us. They're not with the extreme far-right crazy nut jobs that want to take this, that want to go to these extreme places. I mean, there are people out there advocating for women not to have access to birth control. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Do you want to lose every race or just a few races? It's really baffling to me that this is where we are in our country today. And I think you can find a way to balance the right to life with women's rights. And it's just finding that middle ground, putting exceptions in for rape, incest, life of the mother, and fetal abnormalities, looking at those exceptions, finding reasonable gestational limits, and being compassionate, because we can't win hearts and minds when we're this ugly to other people, and particularly to victims of rape. I can't tell you how many times I've come out and talked about my story and why I take the positions I take, then to only get attacked as a victim of rape, about being raped, from the far right. And it's wrong. And women are not going to vote for us if this is the stance that we're going to take. We're going to continue to lose lots of races. You can be conservative and find solutions where most people can agree with you. But if we don't do that, we're going to suffer some major losses in 24. It's going to be a bloodbath. I believe it's going to be a dogfight. And I don't think we know what's coming.
Well, we don't also know what's coming at the Supreme Court, which is where this case is now headed. So we'll be watching that. Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina, thanks so much for joining us.